Welcome to the deep dive. We take dense data, reports, you name it, and boil it down to the strategic insights you actually need. Fast. Today, we're jumping right into a really dynamic market, Kampala's beverage scene. We've got fresh sales data, first week of November 2025. And look, our goal isn't just to read off a list of top sellers, no. We're here to get under the skin of the core strategic tension in Kampala. It's this fundamental conflict, really, that you see everywhere, but it's crystal clear here. It's that trade-off between selling huge volumes, just moving boxes, and generating high value, making good margin on each sale.
Exactly. And the first thing that jumps out from this data is just how segmented the market is. It's not one single entity. So if you go in thinking a one-size-fits-all strategy works, well, you're setting yourself up to fail in, frankly, half the market. You absolutely need two different playbooks, and that's what we'll unpack today, looking at channels where volume is king and others where it's purely about creating value.
Okay, let's dig into that. We can illustrate this split really well by focusing on three key channels. Let's start with the big profit driver, the distributor and wholesaler channel. Get this. It pulls in 32.10%, almost a third of the total market value. But volume-wise, it only accounts for 24.09% of units sold.
Right. That's your classic high-margin engine. Think of distributors and wholesalers as maybe the financial hub of the market. Lots of value-changing hands, high-ticket items perhaps, but fewer actual transactions compared to the whole market. It's where money gets made efficiently.
Okay, so if D&W is the financial hub, then the bar and restaurant channel. Well, that's more like the luxury boutique, right? It's the most extreme example of premium we see. Tiny volume, just 6.87% of total units, but it converts that into a really impressive 16.3% of the market's value.
Yeah, that massive gap, turning less than 7% of the physical product into over 16% of the cash. That tells you everything. It highlights the power of, well, premiumization and the whole experience side of marketing in Kampala. People are paying for the vibe, the moment, the status, not just what's in the glass.
And then, completely opposite to those two, you've got the merchant wholesaler channel. This thing is just a volume monster. It drives a huge 26.32% of all units sold. I mean, that's over a quarter of all the bottles moving in the market. But the value capture, all that activity only brings in 13.57% of the total market value.
It's the absolute definition of the volume play. If D&W is the bank, merchant wholesaler is like a high-speed vending machine network. It's all about being everywhere, fast turnover, and probably razor-thin margins. So this whole picture, this disparity we've just outlined, it basically dictates your strategy.
Yeah.
You have to have some products designed for scale, getting them everywhere, and another set totally focused on brand building and premium positioning. If you ignore one side, you're leaving, well, half the opportunity on the table.
That makes total sense. You can't measure, say, a premium whiskey's success the same way you track a cheap, high-volume wine. Okay, let's go deeper into those value engines first. Starting with that distributor and wholesaler channel, the one driving almost a third of the value. What brands are actually pulling the weight there? Any surprises?
Well, it's interesting. The number one brand by value in that really crucial channel, it's not actually one of the big-name whiskeys, although they're definitely important. It's Amarula liqueur. It contributes 4.58% of the channel's value.
Amarula. Really? Ahead of the premium spirits.
Yeah. It tells us the D&W channel isn't just about ultra-premium. It's fundamentally a high-margin engine. Amarula hits a sweet spot, popular enough for decent volume, but with a price point that clearly delivers strong margins through this channel.
So D&W acts sort of like a bridge, where popular brands can move good volume, but at better margins than, say, the merchant wholesalers.
Precisely. But don't get me wrong, its role as a premium hub is absolutely cemented by the presence of those high-end spirits. They move less volume, sure, but bring in significant margin. You see Chivas Regal pulling 1.96% of value, the Magellan at 1.50%, Singleton at 1.39%. These are like the high-margin anchors holding up that big 32% value share.
Okay, got it. Now let's shift to the real luxury zone, the bar and restaurant channel. We know the value-to-volume ratio is extreme here. Highest price premiums, driven by the consumer experience. What's the standout data point that really proves this?
Oh, we absolutely have to talk about Clase Azul tequila. Its performance here is just, well, it's phenomenal. It's the ultimate case study in value density. It generates an incredible 7.78% of that channel's entire value from a tiny 0.54% of its volume.
Wow, okay, let me process that. 7.78% value from 0.54% volume. That's basically like an 8x markup just for the privilege of drinking it there. That has to be one of the highest margin items in the whole market through that lens.
It points to a very successful strategy, likely built around scarcity, image, exclusivity. And the strategic lesson for you is clear. Marketing in this channel, It needs to be all about creating those luxury experiences, maybe limited editions, high-end pairings. Forget volume pushes or price deals here. It just doesn't fit. And you see other brands reinforcing this, like Johnnie Walker Blended Scotch is significant at 2.74% value. Even niche premium players like Hendrick's Gin, he gets 0.18% value from just 0.09% volume. You pay for the experience. Full stop.
Right. That's the premium playbook in action. Okay, big pivot now. Let's switch gears completely to the other end of the spectrum. We're going from tequila pulling nearly 8% value from 0.5% volume to the merchant wholesaler channel, the volume powerhouse. Pure accessibility, high turnover.
This is the channel that makes sure your product is just everywhere. It's driving that 26.32% of units sold. But when you look under the hood of that engine, you see a huge risk. It's a concentration risk. The channel's performance is overwhelmingly reliant on just two specific brands.
Just two, basically carrying the entire channel's volume.
Pretty much. Those two are Four Cousins Sweet Red Wine, that accounts for 10.70% of the channel's volume alone, and J.P. Chenet Sparkling Wine, right behind at 8.03%. So together, yeah, those two SKUs make up over 18% of this massive channel's volume.
That level of concentration is, wow, almost a fifth of everything the merchant wholesaler shifts. But combined, you said they only capture 9.25% of the channel's value. That is the absolute definition of a low-margin grind.
Exactly. And the strategic danger isn't the sales volume itself, it's the dependency. Relying so heavily on two high-velocity, low-margin products makes this whole volume engine really vulnerable. Think about it. If a competitor, maybe a local player, targets just those two specific wines with something slightly better or crucially cheaper, the ripple effect could be massive. Managing this scale playbook means relentless focus on logistics, efficiency, managing every penny of margin. Because the customer here, they're driven by price, not loyalty.
That's a critical point. That volume dominance creates these huge, tempting targets for competitors.
Okay, moving on slightly, let's look at the core off-trade channels where people buy drinks to take home. We're talking liquor stores and liquor store chains. Together they account for, over 21% of market volume? Pretty crucial.
And we see an interesting, subtle difference between them. The traditional independent liquor stores seem more volume-focused. They do 12.31% of the market volume, but only 8.64% of the value. That suggests they're moving a lot of accessible, everyday type brands.
Whereas the liquor store chains look more balanced, 8.83% volume versus 7.77% value. That's much closer. So I guess that points to maybe a slightly more curated, maybe slightly more premium selection in the chains. I think that's exactly right. The chains probably offer a bit more choice, maybe some better promotions on mid-range spirits, perhaps a few more premium options on the shelf. That tighter volume to value ratio tells us they're not just shifting cases of the cheapest beer. They're successfully selling brands in that sort of accessible premium space. And across both types of liquor stores, you see key consumer brands doing well, things like Amarula, Jose Cuervo, Niederberg wines. They form the bedrock.
Right. And this actually leads us perfectly into something you mentioned earlier, the brand channel stronghold. You said this is a key strategic idea, like a repeatable model bridging premium feel with mainstream access. And the prime example is Jameson Irish Whiskey, specifically in the Tier 2 supermarket channel. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the data here is really neat. Jameson manages to capture 3.57% of the volume in Tier 2 supermarkets, but it converts that into 4.09% of the channel's value. That's a positive value-to-volume ratio. It means they're commanding a price premium, getting better margins, even in a supermarket setting.
Why Tier 2 supermarkets specifically? What is it about that channel or its shoppers that clicks so well for a brand like Jameson?
Well, Tier 2 supermarkets often occupy this interesting middle ground. The shoppers there are maybe looking for something better than the absolute basics found in, say, the merchant wholesaler, but they're not necessarily paying the full premium you'd find in a high-end bar or a specialist store. Jameson, with its perception as a quality Irish whiskey, seems perfectly positioned to capture that consumer who's looking to trade up a bit. It feels accessible, but still aspirational. And the strategic insight for you is, this isn't just a one-off success. Tier 2 supermarkets are clearly an emerging channel for these premium mainstream brands, this Jameson model. It's proven, and it should absolutely be looked at for formal replication across other parts of your portfolio.
Okay, so let's try and pull some of this together now at the category level. Connect the dots for the listener. If we look at, say, whiskey as a whole category based on everything we've discussed, it really stands out as the premium value cornerstone, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Whiskey basically defines the high-margin playbook in Kampala based on this data. You've got the ultra-premium and Chivas, Macallan, Singleton driving huge value in the distributor and wholesaler channel. That's likely structured consumption, maybe corporate gifting, high-end resale. Then you have brands like Johnny Walker anchoring the bar and restaurant scene and Jameson nailing it in Tier 2 supermarkets. Whiskey as a category seems to have masterfully tailored its premium strategy for each specific high-value channel.
And then you've got wine, which, as you flagged earlier, seems to demand that dual strategy. You just can't treat all wine the same way here.
No, the data basically screams for two completely separate approaches.
Right.
You could almost argue for two separate teams managing it. On one hand, you have the massive volume drivers, those accessible sweet wines like Four Cousins dominating the merchant wholesaler channel. That's all about scale, efficiency, price point. Then, completely separately, you have the value-driven segment. Premium dry wines, maybe Nitterberg, KWV. Those need to be managed for the distributor and wholesaler and the liquor store channels where the consumer focuses on quality, maybe vintage, varietal, and they're willing to pay more for it.
Trying to manage those two incredibly different strategies, pure volume versus premium value within the same category, must be a real challenge, like a logistical nightmare almost. How does the data suggest you manage that tension best?
It strongly implies organizational discipline. You likely need separate P&Ls, definitely different distribution tactics, probably entirely different marketing messages, and maybe even teams. The person managing Four Cousins is worrying about supply chain costs, shelf space wars, getting undercut on price. The person managing, say, the Macallan is focused on exclusivity, high-end events, perfect presentation, and top bars. If you try to merge those skills or priorities, you just dilute both strategies. You end up being mediocre at both.
That degree of separation is really fascinating. Okay, so let's synthesize this, pulling it all together now. Based on this deep dive into the volume versus value tension in Kampala, what are, say, the top 3 concrete, actionable recommendations you think our listeners should be taking away and implementing right now?
Okay, 3 key things. First, prioritize and defend your high-value channels.
Yeah.
You absolutely must protect your inventory, your investment, your focus on the truly premium SKUs, your Macallans, your Classy Souls, within those crucial distributor and wholesaler and bar and restaurant environments. No stockouts allowed, no accidental discounting. Ring-fence these profit centers.
Makes sense. Protect the crown jewels. What's number 2? Addressing that risk in the volume engine.
Yes, exactly. You have to mitigate the margin risk in the merchant wholesaler channel. Look, you need the volume from brands like Four Cousins and JP Chenette. It drives cash flow and ubiquity, but you must find ways to make those transactions more profitable. This means getting creative. Think about cross-category bundles. Maybe introduce premium adjacent SKUs, slightly nicer versions, smaller formats at a better margin per liter, something to lift the overall profitability of that channel without killing the volume.
Okay, defend value, improve volume profitability. And the third recommendation?
Capitalize on proven strongholds. Take that Jameson success in Tier 2 supermarkets. Don't just admire it, analyze it, understand why it works, then formally replicate that model. This is your template for bridging premium positioning with mainstream reach. It's absolutely key for capturing that next wave of profitable growth, the consumers trading up but not yet in the luxury tier.
Fantastic. This deep dive really underscores it, doesn't it? Growth isn't a single path, especially in a market like Kampala. Success hinges on mastering those two very different playbooks. You need ruthless efficiency and scale where volume matters, and you need an unwavering focus on creating premium value where the margins justify it.
And maybe here's a final thought, something provocative for you to mull over. That merchant wholesaler channel, driving over a quarter of the market's volume, is heavily reliant on just 2 low-margin wine brands. Now, imagine a savvy competitor decides to aggressively target just those 2 SKUs, maybe with a slightly better quality offering or just a sharper price. How quickly would that competitive pressure domino through the market? How might it impact adjacent channels? What's the true, perhaps hidden cost or risk associated with that kind of volume dominance when it's concentrated in your lowest margin products?
That concentration risk, it's the strategic tightrope everyone in this business walks. A really powerful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for this breakdown of the Kampala beverage market dynamics. We really encourage you to take this framework thinking critically about volume versus value in each channel and apply it to whatever markets or products you work with. Until next time, keep digging deeper.